On the distant planet Xenon, where humans and Xenians lived together in peace, the two species shared much of their knowledge and technology. While the Xenians were far more advanced in areas like interstellar travel and medicine, humans had brought with them something that the Xenians didn't have: creativity. The concept of art, storytelling, and especially movies were completely foreign to the Xenians. Xylar, a curious and adventurous Xenian, had always been fascinated by human culture. He spent much of his free time interacting with his human friends, learning about their strange habits and customs. But nothing could prepare him for the discovery he was about to make. One day, while exploring an old human research facility that hadn't been used in years, Xylar stumbled upon a dusty storage room. Rows of forgotten equipment lined the walls, and in the corner he spotted a small, strange device, a hard drive. Xylar's glowing, iridescent eyes narrowed in curiosity as he picked it up. What kind of ancient human artifact is this? He thought. Without knowing exactly what he had found, Xylar took the hard drive to his fellow Xenians, who were equally baffled by the strange piece of tech. After some discussion, they decided to use their advanced technology to decode the data stored inside. The hard drive whirred to life, and soon they saw images and videos from Earth's past displayed before them. The first file they opened was something they couldn't comprehend at first: a fast-paced scene of explosions, battles, and heroic figures clad in armor, flying through the air and shooting lasers. It was, in fact, a science fiction action movie from Earth, but the Xenians, having never seen anything like this before, mistook it for a historical documentary. "This must be what life on Earth was like before humans came here," Xylar said, his voice filled with awe. The other Xenians nodded in agreement, their eyes wide with astonishment. They watched, transfixed, as the hero of the film single-handedly destroyed an army of robots, saving the world from destruction. The Xenians gasped in amazement at the humans' incredible strength and bravery. To them, this wasn't just a movie. It was an ancient record of Earth's history. "Humans must have been warriors beyond compare," Xylar declared. "No wonder they've survived so long." Excited by their discovery, Xylar and his friends decided to delve deeper into the hard drive. The more they watched, the more convinced they became that humans had lived in a state of constant war and peril, battling everything from robots and aliens to dragons and monsters. Every action scene, every explosion, and every superhero power they witnessed only added to their belief that humans were a race of near-invincible warriors. They had no idea that what they were watching was fiction. Over the next few days, Xylar and his group watched dozens of Earth movies. Each time they marveled at the humans' resilience, ingenuity, and combat prowess. But it wasn't just action movies they stumbled upon. Soon they found themselves watching romantic comedies, horror films, and historical dramas, and their misunderstandings only grew funnier. One evening, after a marathon of action movies, the group of Xenians gathered in their meeting hall to discuss what they had seen. "It seems that human relationships are complicated," said one of the Xenians, her glowing eyes wide as she spoke. "There's always some kind of struggle for affection, and humans use strange tactics to win over their mates." Xylar nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, I saw that too. They engage in what seems to be a series of awkward social rituals before they find a mate. It's fascinating and highly inefficient." "But why do they lie to each other in these stories?" another Xenian asked, confused. "In almost every movie, one human lies and it causes problems. Why wouldn't they just tell the truth?" The group was silent, trying to piece together the human mating customs they had observed from romantic comedies. They were perplexed by the strange social interactions and the idea that humans could find themselves in complicated love triangles. "Perhaps it's a form of competition," Xylar mused. "Humans must test each other's strength and wit before forming a bond. It's some kind of evolutionary challenge, I suppose." As they tried to wrap their minds around human romance, another Xenian brought up the next movie genre they had watched: horror. "The humans were constantly under attack," he exclaimed. "They were being hunted by monsters, ghosts, and creatures that seemed to live in the shadows." Xyla's brow furrowed. Yes, I saw that too. These humans were always at the mercy of something terrible, whether it was a supernatural force or some kind of unstoppable predator. What kind of world was Earth? Another Xenian asked, bewildered. How did they survive in such a dangerous place? The group sat in silence for a moment, thinking about the endless perils humans had faced in their history. They didn't realize they had been watching horror films, interpreting the terrifying moments as actual events from Earth's past. Xyla, feeling a sense of admiration for his human friends, couldn't help but feel impressed. The humans are incredible, Xyla finally said. Not only did they survive these monstrous creatures and endless wars, but they also formed relationships and created a society in the midst of it all. His fellow Xenians nodded in agreement, their respect for humans growing by the second. At this point, the Xenians were completely obsessed with their discovery. They couldn't get enough of Earth movies, and every night they gathered to watch more. They even began sharing the human historical records with others, spreading their misunderstandings, and further convincing the alien community that humans were a race of warriors, romantics, and survivors of the most dangerous world imaginable. Little did they know, the humans were about to find out what the Xenians had been watching, and the truth was going to surprise everyone. The Xenians were hooked. Earth movies had become the most talked-about phenomenon in their colony. Each night, more and more Xenians gathered around to watch what they believed to be the chronicles of humanity's epic past. The mixture of action, romance, and horror left them both fascinated and perplexed. And as their understanding of human culture grew more distorted, their actions grew stranger. Xyla, ever the leader of the curious Xenian group, was particularly captivated by one genre: superhero movies. He and his friends had watched dozens of films featuring humans with superpowers, and they were convinced that at one point in Earth's history, all humans must have had these extraordinary abilities. How else could humans survive the constant barrage of enemies and natural disasters they faced in every movie? One evening, after watching a particularly dramatic superhero film where the main character flew through the sky, shooting lasers from his eyes, Xyla turned to his group. "We've clearly underestimated humans," he said, his voice full of awe. "Their physical strength and abilities are beyond anything we've ever imagined." "How did they lose their powers?" asked one of the younger Xenians, her glowing eyes filled with wonder. "Maybe they didn't," Xyla suggested. "Maybe they're just hiding them. Have you noticed how calm the humans are here on Xenon? It's as if they're holding back." This idea spread quickly among the Xenians. Soon they began to view every human they met with suspicion and admiration, believing that they were surrounded by secret superhumans who could at any moment reveal their powers. One day Xyla decided to test his theory. He approached his human friend Alex, who worked with him at the research facility. "Alex," Xyla said, his tone serious, "I've been meaning to ask you something. Why do you hide your powers?" Alex blinked, taken aback. "My powers? What are you talking about, Xyla?" "You don't have to pretend with me," Xyla continued. "I've seen the records. You're not just a researcher. You're a superhuman, aren't you?" Alex's face twisted in confusion before a look of realization dawned on him. "Wait, are you talking about those movies?" "Yes," Xyla said eagerly, "the historical records of Earth. I've seen how you and others like you once saved your planet from destruction." At this point, Alex couldn't contain his laughter. "Xyla, those are movies, they're not real. Superheroes are just fictional characters." Xyla frowned, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. "Fictional? How could you say that? We've seen the proof. Your people could fly, shoot lasers from their eyes, and lift buildings with their bare hands." No, Alex said, still chuckling. "It's all make-believe. Those are actors pretending to have superpowers. Earth never had people who could do that stuff." The room went quiet as Xyla processed what Alex had just told him. Fiction. The idea that humans had created these incredible stories and that none of it was real was completely foreign to him. On Xenon, they didn't have fiction in the same way humans did. Everything they documented was real. There was no reason to tell stories about things that didn't happen. Wait, so you're telling me humans made up these stories? None of it actually happened? Xyler asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Alex nodded. That's right. Movies are a form of entertainment. They're stories we tell to entertain people, not to document real events. Xyler was stunned. His whole understanding of human history had been turned upside down. But at the same time, he couldn't help but be impressed. You mean humans created all of this just out of their imagination? Exactly, Alex replied. It's called storytelling. Humans have been doing it for thousands of years. We create stories to inspire, entertain, and sometimes to escape from reality. Xyler's eyes gleamed with newfound respect. Your people must have an incredible imagination. We do, Alex said, smiling. But I have to admit it's pretty funny that you thought we all had superpowers. By the time Alex finished explaining, Xyler realized that the Xenians' entire understanding of Earth movies had been a massive misunderstanding. He felt a mixture of embarrassment and admiration. The humans had created entire worlds out of fiction, an art form that didn't exist on Xenon. Back at the Xenian colony, Xyler returned to his group and shared the news. At first they were shocked. What do you mean the movies aren't real? One Xenian asked, her face scrunched in confusion. Are you saying humans made up those stories? That's exactly what I'm saying, Xyler replied. Alex told me that all those battles, romances, and monsters we saw, none of it actually happened. The group fell into stunned silence, trying to wrap their minds around the concept, but instead of being disappointed, they were fascinated. If humans can imagine all of this, one Xenian said, then their creativity must be limitless. I agree, Xyler said, nodding. They've created entire worlds, characters, and events that never existed, and they've done it just to entertain each other. Soon the Xenians' obsession with Earth movies deepened, but now they viewed them through a different lens. They began to appreciate the humans' ability to create stories, understanding that the true magic wasn't in the superpowers or battles, but in the imagination behind them. However, some misunderstandings still persisted, especially when it came to human romantic comedies and horror movies. In one instance, after watching a romantic comedy, a Xenian named Lysara approached a human couple and asked, "Are you currently engaged in one of those human love triangles? I've seen how humans compete for affection, and I must say it's a fascinating strategy." The couple stared at her, dumbfounded, before bursting into laughter. Love triangle? No, the woman said, shaking her head. That's just something that happens in movies. Real relationships don't work that way. Lysara tilted her head, still puzzled. So you're not competing for a mate? But in the movie, humans had to win over their partners by outsmarting their rivals. That's just for fun, the man said, smiling. It's not how real life works. Fascinating, Lysara mused. Your species really is full of surprises. Meanwhile, horror films continued to spook the Xenians. Despite knowing the monsters weren't real, they couldn't shake the unsettling feeling they got after watching Earth's scariest movies. Xyler, in particular, found himself jumping at shadows after watching a particularly frightening film about a haunted house. I know it's just a story, Xyler muttered to himself, but why do I feel like something's lurking in the corner? As the weeks went on, the Xenians' fascination with Earth movies only grew deeper. They had embraced the fact that these films were not historical records, but rather creations of human imagination. This revelation didn't dampen their interest, it only amplified it. The Xenians were now hungry to watch every genre, every movie, and every creative work humans had ever made. But their favorite films were still the action-packed blockbusters and heartwarming comedies that they believed revealed something profound about the human spirit. The problem was that the Xenians didn't just want to watch anymore, they wanted to participate. One evening, after finishing another epic action movie featuring a superhero who saved the world in an explosion-filled finale, Xyler turned to his group with a gleam in his glowing eyes. "We've watched enough," he declared. "It's time we make our own movie." The other Xenians looked at him in surprise. "Make our own movie?" Lysara asked, tilting her head. "You mean create a fictional story like the humans do?" Xylar nodded eagerly. "Exactly. We've learned from the best. Humans have shown us how to use imagination to tell stories, and I think it's time we contribute something. If they can make movies, so can we." The idea quickly caught fire among the group. They were thrilled at the prospect of making their own movie, something that would blend human creativity with Xenian culture. But there was just one problem. The Xenians had no experience in filmmaking. "What kind of movie should we make?" one Xenian asked, her glowing skin flickering with excitement. "An action movie," another suggested. "We've seen how humans fight. We can make an epic battle scene with explosions and—" "Wait," interrupted Lysara. "How about a romantic comedy? Humans seem to love those. It could be about two Xenians who meet at an intergalactic conference and—" No, Xylar cut in, waving his hands. "We need to think bigger. We'll make a space opera, a galactic adventure where heroes travel across the stars to save the universe." The group buzzed with excitement, tossing around ideas for their movie. They had been inspired by Earth's most dramatic and entertaining films, and now they wanted to leave their mark. The next day, the Xenians gathered to begin their grand movie project. Xylar, being the one who had come up with the idea, naturally took on the role of director. Lysara, meanwhile, volunteered to be the lead actor, even though she had no idea what acting entailed. The rest of the group divided up roles from script writing to special effects. Their first scene was an ambitious one, a dramatic spaceship chase through an asteroid field. Xylar, who had spent hours watching Earth sci-fi films, was convinced that they could pull it off using Xenian technology. After all, they had access to real spaceships and advanced visual projection systems. How hard could it be? "All right, Lysara," Xylar said, his voice full of authority as he stood behind the camera. "In this scene, you're the captain of the ship, and you're trying to escape from an enemy vessel. You need to act brave and commanding." Lysara nodded, standing tall with her chest puffed out. "Got it. Brave and commanding." The scene began with Lysara sitting in the cockpit of a holographic spaceship. The other Xenians, using advanced projection tech, created a stunning backdrop of stars and asteroids. It looked like a real space battle was unfolding right before their eyes. "Action!" Xylar yelled. Lysara gripped the controls of the ship, her face full of determination. "We need to get out of here," she shouted dramatically, her voice booming through the set. But something was off. Xylar frowned. Cut! "What's wrong?" Lysara asked, confused. You're being too serious," Xylar said, scratching his head. "It's supposed to be more fun. You know how the human actors do it. They make it look like they're having a good time even when they're saving the world." Lysara blinked. "I thought we were in danger. Shouldn't I be serious?" "Not in a movie," Xylar said. "Humans always add a little humor, even in the middle of a crisis. Try smiling a bit more." The next take was even more absurd. Lysara, taking Xylar's advice to heart, smiled so widely during the spaceship chase that it looked more like she was enjoying a leisurely flight through space rather than escaping from enemy fire. "That's better," Xylar said, though he was still uncertain. "We'll fix it in post-production." As the Xenians continued filming their movie, it became clear that they had misunderstood quite a few things about how human movies were made. For one, they believed that real stunts were performed by actors, and they spent hours debating how they could safely replicate the massive explosions and daring jumps they had seen in Earth's action movies. "Should we actually blow something up?" one Xenian asked seriously, looking at the advanced technology in their lab. "Humans seem to do it all the time in their movies." No, Xylar said, shaking his head. "That's dangerous. We'll just use holograms, but make them look real." Their attempts at using holograms for special effects often ended in chaos. At one point, they accidentally projected an asteroid directly into their set, causing Lysara to scream in real terror believing the rock was about to crush her. "Cut!" Xyla yelled. "That was not supposed to happen." Despite the challenges, the Xenians pressed on. They were determined to finish their movie and show the humans that they too could create something incredible. Finally, after weeks of hard work, the Xenians completed their movie. It was a mix of space battles, romance, and comedy, though not exactly in the way they had intended. The special effects were laughable, the acting was overly dramatic, and the plot was full of confusing twists that didn't quite make sense. When they showed the movie to their human friends, the response was unexpected. The humans loved it. They laughed, cheered, and applauded throughout the entire screening. Xyla and his team were initially confused, thinking that their serious movie had somehow become a comedy. "That was the funniest thing I've ever seen," one human exclaimed, wiping tears of laughter from their eyes. Xyla looked around at his team, bewildered. Funny, but it was supposed to be an epic adventure. Alex grinned, clapping Xyla on the back. It was an adventure, just not the kind you expected. In the end, the Xenians realized that, even though their movie hadn't turned out the way they planned, it still brought joy to their human friends. And that, they learned, was the true power of storytelling.